So I'm very excited about this talk. One of the things that I loved it. I think one of the things I loved in the first volcano was that with collaboration, la Asociación de Fintech was created. Mario Valle, Mariana Springmull, Natalia Pinzon were the ones that would get the meetup and then after that, get into it. Now I'm part of the directors and I love that because I'm seeing that with that project, there's a lot of, we need to do a lot of financial inclusion in our region in Latin America. So I love this panel. I love what we have here. And I love that you're here because one of you guys are getting great things in not just in Mexico, José Luis, just in Latin America. Chris, you're doing great things in UK, Brazil, and a lot of times of regulations. Javier here in Guatemala, going in the region Central America. And Robert, wow, also leading Latin America. So I want first that you introduce you guys very quick. One word that you describe what you're doing. One word what you describe you as leaders. Say your name and tell me one word what describes you as leaders doing this in Latin America.
Hey, thank you, Janma. That's not the first time you've asked me for one word. I know that's your style. Robert Carlisle, leading open banking at Visa. So I'd say my one word is open.
Gracias. Javier.
Well, hello, everyone. I think what describes me is that I'm always looking for the next opportunity to give clients new solutions and better lifestyle.
Gracias.
Thank you. I'm Chris Michael. One word, painful. No, I like to be very much into the detail of things and to make sure stuff is really working. So I go to the nth degree to make sure stuff is working. Painful, that's me.
José Luis?
José López, the CEO of Finerio. I will use three: get things done no matter what. Get things done, and I will add no matter what. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay, guys. So I will do just a little bit of synopsis what I'm talking about here. Open banking is changing the money movement process worldwide for good. Hear from different leaders right now that are here to learn how it's being applied in Latin America and what we can do to size this trend to transform financial products in the region. So my first question is for Robert. Robert, there is a lot of buzz about the concept of open banking, and it has been identified as must for financial inclusion. But let's start from the beginning, Robert. Could you please explain us what is open banking?
Yeah, thank you. In Visa, we tend to start by thinking about open banking as a means to create superior products and services for end users. And that happens in open banking through the sharing of consented or permissioned information and data between entities. I would point out that I think open banking is overly associated with regulation. That exchange or sharing of information does happen in a regulatory context, particularly in Europe, but open banking is a lot more than that. And banks can take advantage of the same technology and APIs to grow their business by extending through new distribution models or through in a more agile way, integrate products and services from third parties. And I would just add a couple of clarifying definitions for level setting. So open finance for us is the extension of that concept to other financial sectors. So it could be insurance or investments. And that's really relevant to where Latin America is going, especially certain regulators. While open data is the further extension of that to other sectors, which could be healthcare and energy. And I think that's a little bit further in the future.
Gracias. Someone wants to add something there? Or we go to the next question. Why do we need open banking and how can we different actors in the financial ecosystem benefit from it? Javier.
Well, I think we need open banking, first of all, because our clients deserve better products and services. As Robert says, we're introducing open banking as embedded finance, for example. And the way we do finance in the old way, in the past years, was that we create all of the infrastructure just for us. We created the products that we think that the client needs. But the new way, and the new way to grow, is the way that we can collaborate with fintechs, with other partners, and how the banks can collaborate and stay relevant here. We need to open our infrastructure so fintechs and everyone can create better services for our clients. So I think we need it for a strategy for the bank, but the ones that need it are the clients because they deserve better services, and we can leverage on all the infrastructure that we already have. As you just saw in the morning, we joined with free, and we opened our ATM network, so another fintech can use it and withdraw money. And at the beginning, when we set up the ATM network, it was like a competitive advantage to us because we only wanted to use it by us. But now, if we want to collaborate and grow and create a new ecosystem, we need to be open so everyone can invent new things.
That's a great applause, please, because they're doing great things with Backbone Industrial and they're getting open. That's a huge step in our economy here in Guatemala and the region. Chris?
Thank you. I mean, I think fundamentally most banks are not technology companies. They're good at a lot of things, but quite often they have large, complex technology estates, or they're using a platform that is, a cloud platform maybe, or another platform that might have a core banking system, might offer and enable different services. But really, what open banking is about is enabling banks and fintechs to collaborate to offer those new services. And the more extensive and the more functionality that exists in that API layer that sits between the banks and the fintechs, the stronger the collaboration can be, and the better the products and services that can be offered to the end customers. But really, it's about not just enabling those innovations, those new products and services. It's also about speed. It's about enabling banks to move more quickly. If banks have got great APIs, they can partner with those fintechs, they can launch those services much more quickly to the market. And that's really important particularly in regions like Latin America.
José Luis?
Yes. We started as a B2C company. We created at the beginning a personal finance app. Our purpose was actually not being an open banking company. Our purpose was to help change people's lives, because people in Latin America, they don't save, they don't plan for the future. And on a personal finance app, I mean, you can gather all your information from different banks and can automatize all your finances. But at that time, I mean, there were no open banking companies. So we have to create the connections to banks to gather all the information in one place. And when we launched the app, we realized that we could have a big impact with people. I mean, we interviewed our customers, and we realized that the people that were actually using our app save up to 20% of their expenses using our app. And then at that time, we talked with the regulator in Mexico. They created the first open banking law in Latin America, one of the first open banking laws in the world. And we realized that providing all the technology that we created to use open banking in different purposes could have like a bigger impact. We could reach like millions of customers rather than thousands of customers. But at the same time, we realized that how open banking was done in other regions like Europe, like the United States. I mean, you could use open banking, but it has limitations, like some use case limitations. And we wanted to have the biggest impact, not just being a multi-million-dollar company, but having the biggest impact between people. And to do that, we have to create better technology. We have to change the business model. And that's how we partner with Ozon and Visa. Now we hope we partner with Banco Industrial, because we wanted to have a better way of doing open banking. creating a better system, better technology, etc. And now the purpose of open banking can change people's finances, access to credit, financial inclusion. Actually, there's a study that it can actually impact the economic development in one country, like creating a lot of investment. But to do so, we have to create open banking in a better way. And to do so, we now Latin America is in the best place possible, because many countries are creating open banking laws. We learn for what not to do in other countries, other regions. And with that experience, we can do better. We can have the best open banking ecosystem in the world.
Nice. Gracias, José Luis.
Sorry.
So we have different perspectives, as you said, as you are being talking right now. And about the topic in the panel, I would like to start with Chris' perspective.
Thank
Please
you.
tell us about Ozone experience with
So-
open banking in UK, Brazil. And what would you recommend for the rest of Latin America? I know also you're doing things in Saudi Arabia.
Sure. So we started back in 2016, 2017 in the UK, creating the open banking standard for the UK, working with the what was called the Open Bank Implementation Entity. And this was the first time that any country had developed a common standard for open banking. Open banking as a concept has been around for at least 15 years, based on two things, predominantly credential sharing and screen scraping. Customers would give a fintech, a third party, their username, password. The third party would impersonate the customer and screen scrape the customer's bank account. And that is still quite a predominant practice in many parts of the world. But it has a number of issues around security, privacy, and it's also hard to do, expensive to do, and has a large cost and reliability concerns. So APIs are a much better way of doing this. And we created the UK Open Banking Standard back in 2017, actually. But what we saw when we created this standard is we saw how difficult it was for banks to implement this. I touched on this earlier, that most banks aren't technology companies. And so we realized that we needed to go a step further and actually build the technology to help banks to meet both regulatory requirements for opening their APIs, but also to meet commercial objectives to create this as a commercial channel to partner with those fintechs. So we created Ozone in the back end of 2017 as a company to help those banks implement open banking. We call it open banking in a box, effectively. But since then, we've been working with regulators and central banks all over the world, and we've been rolling out our software as a service in many different parts of the world, across Europe, in the Middle East, in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and in Brazil, and now the rest of Latin America. And I think the key learning here is that what we're seeing is that banks are moving from back in 2017 when they started in the UK, they were forced to do open banking. It was a punishment. It was a compliance exercise that they were forced to do it. And they didn't see the value. They saw it was going to cost them money. It was going to be potentially creating risk because they were opening up their systems, their data to third parties who would compete with them. But what we've seen since is that open banking, if it's done well, that is the key point. It needs to be done well. Banks need to do APIs that are really high performing, that are really rich in functionality, and are done in accordance with the standard. When it's done well, we're seeing banks really starting to get the benefits. They can partner with those fintechs. They can offer better loans, better lending to customers. They can be not only providers of APIs, they can consume those APIs as well to offer aggregation services across other banks. And we're seeing now across the UK, open banking is really starting to take off, close to 10 million users, personal and business customers. And that's been sort of, I suppose, proposed as a sort of role model or example for the rest of the world. But it's not perfect. There's a lot of things that aren't working so well in open banking in the UK, not least the regulation, because it was a punishment. The banks didn't have the right incentives. What we're seeing now in other parts of the world, and we're working with regulators Janma mentioned in Saudi Arabia particularly, is starting this the other way around, rather than starting it with the regulations, starting it with use cases and looking at what use cases actually work for customers and making sure that both banks and fintechs have got the same incentives to deliver those services, and then from that, creating both the standards and the regulations to support those use cases. And this is now changing the game because we're seeing everyone, not just the fintechs, but the banks really getting much more excited globally about the concept of open banking, open finance, and they can see the value for their customers. But I think it's flipping the narrative round is the key thing here, to start with those use cases and look at the value to the customers.
No, and I love that you're saying that, because I love when I met Hugh with José Luis in Mexico and Robert, and told me about sandboxes, how you can really have a sandbox and see the whole ecosystem, how it will work with this amazing APIs, but how everyone in the bank, the customers, even Visa or MasterCard or whatever, everyone will be there connected. And how that will be better for us in the financial inclusion, and that will we will leapfrog our society if we do that. Because even though we have, imagine people, we have 600 million people in all Latin America. The 50% less doesn't have bank accounts. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And the other thing is great that there's just at least 400 banks in all Latin America. And imagine that the United States has 300 million people and they have more than 5,000 banks. So there's a huge opportunity there. So you have to take notes there. I would like to, José Luis, you've been working in Brazil with Nubank. You've been working in Mexico and Colombia with a lot of big clients. 3 regional ecosystems that are changing the way we do finance in LATAM. Could you share with us some of the use cases you have been working on in these countries?
Yes, of course. I mean, as we mentioned, we started with personal finances, right? And some of our biggest clients, they started doing personal finance apps, like Fintonic, that is the biggest open banking user in Hispanic America. Bancolombia is launching the first personal finance app that can connect to other banks in Colombia. Grupo Sura that is using a personal finance app to save money to people and make those people invest in their financial services. But then, I mean, some of our big clients, they use open banking for loans. It's extremely useful. Like some people in Latin America, they don't have access to the credit bureau because they are low income or they recently graduated from the schools. And because of that, I mean, it's hard for them to have their first credit card, their first loan. For instance, for Nubank, we are working to get those clients that they don't have credit history, and you can use transactional information. Many of them, they have debit cards. We can use the transactional information to calculate their risk, to create a credit score, to assess their income. I mean, it's extremely useful for those kind of customers. Also, there is a big bulk of customers that are using our infrastructure for accounting. I mean, when you have transactional data and you have tax data, you can conciliate the information and you can automatize all your processes. In Mexico, I mean, big companies, they have like hundreds of accountants just doing that job. With open banking, I mean, you can make that more efficient, you can automatize processes, and that's one of the biggest use cases in the UK, where like all the companies have to pay taxes through open banking, automatizing all the process, right? Also, I mean, there are other use cases that we are launching, not yet, but we're talking with some companies, like for instance, loyalty programs. Now with loyalty programs, so you have to have the card of the bank to start accumulating points, or you have to have the card of the business to use the loyalty program. With open banking, you can consolidate all your expenses in one place. And for instance, you go 5 times to Starbucks, regardless with which card you pay, I mean, you can accumulate the amount, accumulate visits, and you can automatically redeem points. So it's extremely useful for that. Also, we're working with marketing purposes. I mean, open banking, for instance, Target, they gather all the information from their users in the US, and Target, they started giving promotions to a teenager, like a baby clothing promotion, diapers to a teenager. The father of this teenager complained because Target shouldn't do that to a teenager. And after some months, they realized that actually the teenager was pregnant. I mean, with data, Target predicted before that the teenager was pregnant. So that's the power of data. I mean, now, for instance, Google, I mean, you have to make a search of a product, and they start like giving promotions on that search. But with data, you can even predict a purchase even before the person wants that purchase. So that's the future. Open banking is the future for marketing. And I mean, I will let Chris also, because he has like great examples of use cases.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you combine data and payments, it gets really exciting what you can do with open banking. You can help people manage their expenses, help them save money, help them invest money, and you can automate that process. And I think that's where it gets really exciting. E-commerce, when you can blend a payment experience with an automated loyalty experience without having to ask the customer to do anything else, this is the real power. And this is when I spoke earlier about starting with use cases. If we think about these use cases, they offer value to the customers. They offer value to fintechs, because fintechs can provide those experiences. They offer value to the banks, and they offer value to merchants and other parties involved in that. So, it's a win-win situation for everyone, and it's no longer difficult to do. There are standards that are emerging all over the world that are starting to enable these use cases. Regulators are starting to realize the benefits, and the technology is there. And Janma mentioned, sandboxes. We can provide technology that enables everyone to build applications, to get things up and running with test data, and then flip a switch and plug this into real bank accounts, and it can be done very, very quickly and really deliver the value quickly.
Gracias Chris, and gracias José Luis. So Javier, Banco Industrial has been a leader in innovation in the banking sector in Guatemala and Central America. Tell us your perspective and what's next.
Well, we started talking about open banking like a year and a half. And it's not just create APIs just to have a lot of APIs and get connected. You need to have a strategy and need to have a roadmap with the right use cases to add value to the market and to the bank. But I think there is a term that I like to use that is invisible banking, because in the near future, everyone that will use our APIs and services will be embedded in other non-financial transactions. So doesn't matter if they don't use my app or my e-banking, but they will be still using my infrastructure. We're working right now. Soon we will have our marketplace and our sandbox, so everyone can test and join us to create new things. And this will open and give the step for open innovation, because we know that we cannot create everything. We understand that many years ago. And this will open so entrepreneurs, fintechs, probably government, etc., so we can create things together. So that's why we enter here, because we have a strategy, and also we need to monetize our infrastructure, because it's very big and many people can do right now payments, create new products and digitize our products, and offer these products through other apps. So that's where we're looking for.
So hear that, guys. Banco Industrial is open to do that. So every fintech that is here today, all the fintechs that came from Latin America. So Javier is the guy. You have to go with him. So I would like to wrap up, and I would like to close asking Robert to share. I know that you have. I was in Fino Summit in Mexico a few months ago, and you got an alliance for strategic alliance. Sorry, for all Latin America with Finerio and Ozon. Can you tell us about that, Robert?
Yeah, very, very happy to. So this is a case of Visa putting together two very trusted partners to drive open banking in Latin America. Firstly, Ozone API, the original architects of open banking, who have now developed the leading bank enablement platform. We're putting them together with a really trusted partner in Finerio Connect, who can bring that platform to life in Latin America with their connectivity footprint and local know-how. And of course, Visa complements those two companies very well. We have beautifully organized, readily available data to bring to open banking, analytics assets that build on that data, identity and security capabilities, as well as our payments play. And with the three companies together, we bring capabilities across the supply side through to the demand side of open banking. And with that, we can enable progressive institutions, financial institutions, to really embrace open banking. But we can also take it to the next level and potentially enable whole markets or whole countries. And we're really keen to talk about that in the context of Guatemala.
Wow, what you're doing for Guatemala? Tell me about it. Are you looking for that? Going through open banking and help the region for that?
Well, I think Guatemala's in a really great place. It hasn't rushed to a European model, kind of overburdened by regulation and all that process. Has progressive financial institutions. So I think all the ingredients are there to maybe take a fresh look and do things better than they've tried to do in Europe and other parts of Latin America. I think maybe our partners can comment on that as well.
You want to comment something, Jose Luis or Chris?
Yes. I mean, we would like to talk about like how we are trying to reinvent open banking. Like Steve Jobs, in his book, he said that everything that has been done, I mean, sometimes we believe that that's the best way of doing things. But if we analyze things, I mean, we can do better. That's the case with open banking. When you, I mean, talk with regulators in Latin America, with banks in Latin America, they believe that the best way of doing banking is the way that the Europe implemented open banking with PSD2. But actually, when you talk with fintech, when you talk with banks in Europe, you realize that it has a lot of areas of opportunity. So basically, we are redesigning how open banking is done. And instead of like looking at compliance, just creating an open banking law, help regulators to create that open banking law and make a lot of money doing like apicals, we are thinking about like use cases. I mean, instead of like just sharing data, sharing payments, I mean, how can open banking create new use cases for loans, for personal finances, investment, etc. And that creates a different way of creating the technology, a different way of implementing technology. And also, I mean, we have to create a business model that also benefits all parties, because open banking, the way it was created in Europe, I mean, banks cannot charge for apicals, and sometimes banks don't have the right incentives to keep investing in open banking. So we want also to change that, to see that banks can have benefit from day one by sharing data, sharing financial products, sharing payments, and also they should, instead of focusing on something that like Ozone has already created, and that is the regulatory technology. I mean, focus on use cases, how they can bring value to customers. And if they don't see that they don't see open banking as a burden, but something that can enable tons of things, can bring new customers, that can bring their financial services in the right moment. For instance, open banking has the potential of creating any company can be a fintech with open banking. A school can like offer loans without being like a financial institution. I mean, the potential is huge, and we want banks to be and fintechs to be excited about that.
Super.
Sorry.
Super. We're getting out of time,
Sorry.
guys. I just want to say that so you're committed to do and world-class open banking in Guatemala and in Central America. So thank you for that. Gracias. Thank you.